The room is full of champagne, silk gowns, and dangerous men wearing tuxedos. Then a child's voice cuts through it all. "I think you're my daddy." Every head turns to Bennett Butler, the untouchable crime lord, whose world just cracked wide open in front of his enemies. Before we dive deeper into this story, make sure to subscribe. New stories unfold here every day, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single one. And don't forget to comment which state you're watching from. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in. Amelia Brooks is putting the final touches on the biggest contract of her career, designing the Butler Foundation Gala, when her 9-year-old son, Johnny, insists on helping her deliver last-minute decorations. She reluctantly agrees, never imagining the event she's been hired to transform belongs to him. Bennett Butler, the man who disappeared from her life 10 years ago without explanation, leaving her heartbroken and pregnant. Johnny has seen his father only in old photographs tucked away in Amelia's dresser drawer, pictures she couldn't bring herself to destroy. When the gala begins and guests fill the ballroom, Johnny's curiosity gets the better of him. He wanders toward the man everyone whispers about, studies his face beneath the chandelier light, and speaks the truth Amelia has hidden for nearly a decade. The words hang in the air like broken glass. Bennett freezes. His lieutenants tense. And Amelia's carefully rebuilt life begins to unravel, because now his enemies know what she spent years protecting. Bennett Butler has an heir. And in his world, that makes Johnny a target. But this moment, this collision of past and present, didn't begin at a gala. It began 10 years earlier, in a dingy bar on the east side of the city, when Amelia saved the life of a man she didn't know was about to inherit an empire built on blood. The chandelier light seems too bright suddenly, casting sharp shadows across Bennett Butler's face as he stares down at the boy in the green velvet jacket. His mouth opens but no sound comes out. For a man who has ordered executions with a single nod, who has stared down rival bosses across blood-stained tables, this moment renders him completely powerless. Johnny smiles up at him, innocent and expectant, waiting for an answer. Around them, the ballroom has gone deathly quiet. Champagne glasses hover mid-air. Conversations die on painted lips. Every eye in the room fixes on the city's most dangerous man, and the child who just claimed him as father. Bennett's lieutenant, Eli Grant, moves instinctively closer, his hand sliding toward the concealed weapon beneath his tailored jacket. 2 more men in black suits materialize from the crowd, forming a subtle barrier. But their eyes betray something new: uncertainty. They've never seen their boss frozen like this, stripped bare in front of an audience that includes allies, enemies, and everyone in between. "Johnny!" Amelia's voice cuts through the silence like a whip crack. She appears from behind a marble column, her face drained of color, her hands trembling as she reaches for her son. She grabs Johnny's shoulders and pulls him back, positioning herself between the boy and the man whose name she hasn't spoken aloud in 10 years. Their eyes meet. For a heartbeat, the gala disappears. The guests, the music, the glittering opulence, all of it falls away. There's only Bennett and Amelia, standing 3 feet apart across a chasm of time and broken promises. Amelia. Her name leaves his lips like a prayer and a curse tangled together. He says nothing. Her jaw tightens, her spine straightens. But her eyes, those same hazel eyes he once memorized in lamplight, burn with something between fury and devastation. "Mom, is that him?" Johnny whispers, tugging her sleeve. "Is that?" "Not now, sweetheart." Her voice is steady, but her hand shakes as she smooths his hair. "Go wait by the door. Now." Johnny hesitates, looking between his mother and the tall man whose face has gone pale beneath his expensive suit. Something passes between them, something heavy and old and dangerous, that even a 9-year-old can sense. "Go," Amelia repeats, firmer this time. Johnny obeys, glancing back once before disappearing into the crowd. The moment he's gone, Bennett finds his voice. We need to talk. No, the word is steel. Amelia. You don't get to say my name. She steps closer, lowering her voice to a harsh whisper that only he can hear. You don't get to stand here in your $1,000 suit and act like you have any right to talk to me or look at him or… Is he mine? The question hangs between them, raw and desperate. Amelia's throat works. For a moment, Bennett thinks she might slap him. Hopes she will, because at least that would be something real, something deserved. But she only stares at him with those eyes that once looked at him like he was worth saving. You gave up the right to ask that question 10 years ago, she says quietly. When you walked out of my apartment and never looked back. The words hit harder than any blow he's taken in a decade of violence. 'Cause she's right. Because he did walk away, even though it nearly killed him. His mind flashes back unbidden. Their last night together. Amelia's small apartment, the sheets tangled around them, her head on his chest as she traced patterns across his skin. He'd been planning to tell her about his father's murder, about the empire he was being forced to inherit, about the blood oath that would consume his life. But she'd looked up at him with such trust, such love, and he'd kissed her instead, memorizing the taste of her, knowing it would be the last time. Promise me something, she'd whispered against his mouth. Anything. Don't ever leave me without saying goodbye. He'd held her tighter, pressing his face into her hair and lied. I promise. Bennett blinks, dragging himself back to the present. The memory tastes like ash. I did it to protect you, he says, his voice rough. If I'd stayed. You don't know what I needed protection from. Amelia's voice cracks, just slightly. I raised him alone, Bennett. 9 years. I worked double shifts at the decorating firm, missed his first steps because I was hanging drapes in some stranger's house, sang him to sleep in apartments with broken heat while you were building an empire. The accusation lands like a knife between his ribs. He wants to explain, to make her understand the impossible choice he'd faced. But how can he explain that leaving her was the only way to keep her alive? That his father's killers had threatened everyone he loved? That he'd spent a decade building walls of power and violence around the memory of her, just to ensure she could live her life in peace? He has your eyes, Bennett says instead. His voice barely audible. Amelia flinches. Don't. The same stubborn set to his jaw. That dimple when he smiles. Stop. She backs away, shaking her head. You can't do this. You can't just appear after all these years and claim him because it's convenient for you. You think any of this is convenient. Bennett's control finally fractures. He steps closer and she doesn't retreat this time. You think I wanted this? To see you here to find out. He breaks off, dragging a hand through his hair. We need to talk. Somewhere private. Tomorrow. No. Amelia. I said no. Her voice rises just enough that Eli glances over, concerned. She lowers it again, leaning in so close Bennett can smell her perfume. Different than before, more expensive, but still jasmine underneath. I came here to do a job. That's it. You're nothing to me anymore. Neither of you exist to each other. That's how it stays. She turns to leave. They saw him. Bennett's words stop her mid-step. Everyone in this room saw him. They saw his face, his age. They'll do the math. Amelia looks back over her shoulder, and for the first time, he sees fear flicker beneath her anger. Some of the men here aren't my friends, Amelia. Some of them would love nothing more than to find a weakness in my armor. And you just gave them one. Their eyes lock, and something unspoken passes between them. The same electricity that used to pull them together, now twisted into something darker and more dangerous. That's your world, she says coldly. Not ours. She walks away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, heading toward the exit where Johnny waits. Bennett watches her go, his hands clenched at his sides, something cracking open in his chest that he'd sealed shut years ago. Eli appears at his elbow. Boss. Bennett doesn't respond. He's watching Amelia gather their son, watching her place a protective hand on the boy's shoulder as they disappear through the gilded doors. In the crowd, he catches the calculating stares of Anthony Moretti's men, the whispered conversations starting behind raised hands, the shift in the room's atmosphere. The secret is out. The damage is done. She shouldn't have come here, Bennett murmurs, his voice hollow. His jaw tightens as he turns away from the door, his expression hardening back into the mask he's worn for a decade. None of them should have. Eli follows his gaze to where Moretti's lieutenant stands watching, a slight smile on his face. Do we have a problem, boss? Bennett's eyes go cold. We will. The lock on Amelia's apartment door sticks like it always does, requiring that specific jiggle and twist she's learned over 3 years of living here. Her hands shake so badly it takes 4 tries. Behind her, Johnny shifts his weight from foot to foot, still wearing the green velvet jacket that now feels like a beacon she should have never let him put on. Mom, are you okay? I'm fine, baby. The lie tastes bitter. She finally gets the door open and ushers him inside, flipping on lights that feel too bright, too exposing. Their small apartment, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, furniture from thrift stores she'd painstakingly refinished, suddenly feels like a fortress with paper walls. Johnny drops his backpack by the door and turns to face her, his expression too serious for 9 years old. That man at the party, the one everyone was scared of. He pauses, watching her face carefully. Was that really my dad? Amelia's heart fractures down the middle. She kneels in front of him, taking his small hands in hers. Up close, she can see Bennett in every feature, the sharp intelligence in those gray eyes, the determined set of his jaw, even the way he tilts his head when he's working through a problem. For 9 years, she's looked at her son and seen the ghost of the man she loved. Tonight, that ghost became flesh and blood again. Yes, she whispers, because she's never lied to Johnny about the important things. That was your father. Why did he look so scared? Because he's finally realized what he threw away. Because he didn't know about you, sweetheart. We lost touch a long time ago. Before I was born. Yes. Johnny processes this, his face scrunching up the way it does when he's thinking hard. Is he a bad man? Everyone seemed afraid of him. Amelia closes her eyes briefly. How does she explain that the man who once held her so gently he was afraid she might break, the same man who read poetry to her at 3 a.m. and cried when his father died, has become something else entirely? Something dangerous and unreachable. People are complicated, she says finally. Your father, he made choices I didn't agree with. But that doesn't mean you have to worry about any of it, okay? We're fine, just you and me. Like always. Johnny nods slowly, but uncertainty clouds his features. Can I see him again? The question tears through her. I don't know, baby. Maybe someday. But not now. Not yet. She pulls him into a hug, breathing in his little boy smell of grass and soap and innocence. Go get ready for bed. It's late. He trudges toward his room, and Amelia stays kneeling on the floor, suddenly too exhausted to stand. The gala, Bennett's face when Johnny spoke, the way the entire room had turned electric with danger. It all crashes over her in waves. She should never have taken that job. Should never have let Johnny come. Should never have believed she could exist in Bennett Butler's world, even at the edges, without consequences. Across the city, in a penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering skyline, Bennett pours 2 fingers of whiskey and doesn't drink it. He just stares at the amber liquid, seeing Amelia's face reflected in its surface. Eli Grant closes the office door behind him and takes the seat across from Bennett's desk without being invited. They've known each other long enough that formality died years ago. Want to tell me what the hell happened back there? Eli's voice is careful, probing. Bennett finally lifts the glass and drains it in one swallow. The burn feels appropriate. The boy. Johnny, Eli supplies. That's what his mother called him. Johnny. Bennett tests the name and something twists in his chest. He's mine, Eli. You sure? I'm sure. Bennett sets the glass down with too much force. 9 years old. Timing's right. And his eyes. He breaks off, dragging both hands through his hair. Christ, he has my eyes. My father's eyes. Eli leans forward, elbows on his knees. The woman. Amelia. She's the one from before. Yes. The one you walked away from when your father died. When the family needed. I know what I did. Bennett's voice cracks like a whip. Then quieter. I know what I gave up. Silence stretches between them. Outside, the city pulses with light and sin and secrets. This is Bennett's kingdom now, built on his father's blood and his own ruthlessness. But kingdoms require sacrifices, and his had cost him everything that mattered. I loved her, Bennett says suddenly, the confession rough and unpracticed. I loved her so much it scared me. And when my father was murdered, when they came to me with a choice, take over or watch everyone I cared about die, I knew I couldn't protect her and run an empire. So I chose. You chose the family business. I chose to keep her alive. Bennett's hands curl into fists on the desk. I thought if I stayed away, if I became someone else entirely, she could have a normal life. She could be safe. He remembers the blood oath, kneeling in his father's study with 7 witnesses surrounding him. His uncle, his father's brother and killer, though Bennett wouldn't discover that truth for another year, had placed the family ring on his finger and spoken the words that would chain him forever. You are butler now. Your blood is the family's blood. Your life is the family's life. Anyone you love becomes leverage. Anyone you protect becomes a target. Do you understand? Bennett had understood. He'd understood with crystal clarity that staying with Amelia would paint a target on her back that his enemies would never miss. So he'd walked out of her apartment at dawn before she woke, leaving nothing but a note that said, I'm sorry, because he couldn't bring himself to write goodbye. He'd thought it would get easier. Never did. For the first time in years, Bennett continues, his voice hollow, I'm afraid. Not of Moretti or the Russians or anyone trying to take my territory. I'm afraid of what I saw in her eyes tonight. That hatred. That contempt. And I'm afraid of what happens now that people know the boy exists. Eli's expression darkens. Moretti's men were watching. I saw them taking pictures. I know. Boss, if they connect the dots. They already have. Bennett stands abruptly, moving to the window. Down below, the city sprawls in all directions, every light representing someone living in the shadow of his power. Every enemy I've made in the last decade just learned I have a son. A son I didn't know about. A son with no protection. So what do we do? Bennett's reflection in the glass looks like a stranger. Harder, colder than the man who used to laugh in Amelia's bed. We watch them. Put 2 men on her building, rotating shifts. They don't make contact, they just observe. If anyone, gets close to her or the boy, I want to know immediately. And the woman, Amelia. Do we tell her about the protection? No, Bennett's voice is firm. She'd refuse it. She'd see it as me trying to control her life. He presses his palm against the cold glass. Just keep them safe, Eli. However you have to do it. Eli stands to leave, then pauses at the door. For what it's worth, boss. The kid seemed brave. Walking up to you like that in front of everyone. Takes guts. After Eli leaves, Bennett stands at the window for a long time, watching the city and remembering what it felt like to be someone who deserved Amelia's love. In her apartment, Amelia tucks Johnny into bed and kisses his forehead. She moves to her own room, sits on the edge of her bed, and pulls out the shoebox from the back of her closet. Inside are photographs she hasn't looked at in years. Her and Bennett laughing at a street fair, Bennett asleep on her couch with a book on his chest, the 2 of them kissing in a photo booth, young and stupid and so desperately in love. She'd been a veterinary student working nights at a bar to pay tuition. He'd been a grad student in literature, quoting Neruda and making her believe in impossible things. They'd had 9 perfect months before his father's murder changed everything, asterisk. She traces Bennett's face in the photograph, then closes the box and shoves it back into darkness where it belongs. Outside, 3 stories down, a black sedan idles at the curb with its lights off. Inside, 2 of Moretti's men watch the building, their phones full of photos from the gala. The boy with Bennett Butler's eyes is now the most valuable commodity in the city's underworld. And no one is safe anymore. Amelia is pouring cereal for Johnny when someone knocks on her door at 7 in the morning. Not the tentative tap of a neighbor or the rhythmic pattern of a delivery. This is 3 sharp raps that sound like a demand. She freezes, milk carton suspended mid-air. "Stay here," she tells Johnny, setting down the carton with forced calm. Through the peephole she sees him, Bennett Butler, somehow looking both exhausted and immaculate in a charcoal suit, standing in her dingy apartment hallway like a king slumming in his own kingdom. She yanks open the door before he can knock again. "What the hell are you doing here? We need to talk." His voice is low, urgent. "I have nothing to say to you. Amelia, please." "Mom." Johnny appears behind her, clutching his cereal bowl, his eyes going wide. "Is that? Go to your room, sweetheart." Amelia doesn't take her eyes off Bennett, who's staring at Johnny with an expression that might be wonder or grief or both. "But now, Johnny." The boy retreats reluctantly, glancing back twice. Amelia steps into the hallway and pulls the door mostly closed behind her, creating a barrier between her 2 worlds. "You can't just show up here," she hisses. "You can't. I need to see him. Really see him. Not across a ballroom with 100 people watching." Bennett's composure is cracking at the edges. "Please, Amelia. I'm asking you." "Asking?" She laughs, sharp and bitter. "You don't get to ask for anything. You left. You chose to leave. And now, 10 years later, you want to play father because it's suddenly convenient. It was never about convenience." His jaw tightens. "I left to keep you safe." "Safe?" The word explodes out of her. "I was 23 years old, pregnant, and alone. I lost my scholarship because I couldn't afford childcare and classes. I worked 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. Where was my safety then, Bennett? Where were you when I gave birth to your son in a county hospital with no one holding my hand?" The words hit him like physical blows. She can see it in the way he flinches, the way his hands curl into fists at his sides. "I didn't know," he says hoarsely. "You have to believe me, I didn't. You didn't know because you didn't stay. You made a choice, and it wasn't me. It wasn't us." She wraps her arms around herself, a protective gesture learned from too many nights standing alone. "You chose power. You chose that world." She gestures vaguely toward the city beyond her building. "So don't come here now pretending you did it for noble reasons. You did it for yourself." "That's not true." "Then prove it. Tell me why you really left. Tell me what was so important that you couldn't even say goodbye." Bennett opens his mouth, then closes it. She can see the war happening behind his eyes, the things he wants to say trapped behind walls of secrets and old oaths. And his silence is the answer she expected. "That's what I thought." She turns back toward her door. "They know about him." The words stop her cold. "Everyone who was at that gala now knows I have a son. My enemies. My rivals. Men who would do anything to find leverage against me." Amelia looks back slowly, something icy sliding down her spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your life changed the moment Johnny walked up to me. Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, you're in my world now. Both of you." He steps closer and she can smell his cologne. Different than before, expensive and foreign. "I need to put protection on you. Guards outside your building, someone to follow you to work." "Absolutely not. Amelia. You don't get to control my life. You don't get to turn my home into some kind of prison just because you have paranoid delusions about. This isn't paranoia." His voice drops to something deadly serious. "This is reality. The Moretti family has been looking for ways to hurt me for years. Now they have one. And if you think they'll hesitate to use a 9-year-old boy as leverage, then you don't understand the world I live in. I don't want to understand your world, she shoots back. I want nothing to do with it. It's too late for that. There's something almost gentle in his voice now, which somehow makes it worse. The moment he said those 5 words, it was too late. They stare at each other in the dim hallway, years of unspoken things hanging between them like smoke. Amelia wants to argue, wants to tell him he's being dramatic, wants to believe this is just another manipulation tactic. But something in his eyes, real fear, raw and undisguised, makes her hesitate. I don't need your protection, she says finally, but her voice wavers. Yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it. He reaches into his jacket, and she tenses before realizing he's pulling out a business card. This is Eli's number. My second in command. If anything, anything seems wrong, you call him. Day or night. She doesn't take the card. He sets it on the narrow hallway table beside her door. I mean it, Amelia. Strange cars outside your building, someone following you, anything that feels off you call. Get out of my hallway, Bennett. He lingers for a moment, looking like he wants to say something else. Then he nods once and walks away, his footsteps echoing down the stairwell. He doesn't use the elevator. Old habits from a life where closed spaces mean death traps. Amelia stands in the hallway long after he's gone, staring at the business card like it's a snake that might strike. Finally, she picks it up, starts to crumple it, then stops. Instead, she shoves it in her pocket and goes back inside. Johnny is peeking around his bedroom doorframe. Was that my dad? Yes, she says tiredly. Is he going to come back? Hope not, she thinks. I'm terrified he will, she realizes. I don't know, baby. That night, after Johnny is asleep, Amelia sits on her worn couch with a cup of tea, trying to pretend everything is normal. She's wearing old pajamas, her hair in a messy bun, mindlessly scrolling through her phone while reality TV plays on mute. The brick comes through her living room window at 10:47 p.m. Glass explodes inward with a sound like the world ending. Amelia screams, dropping her mug, hot tea splashing across her legs as she throws herself sideways off the couch. The brick lands where she'd been sitting, wrapped in paper and secured with rubber bands. Mom! Johnny's voice, terrified, from his room. Stay there, she shouts, her voice shaking. Don't come out. She approaches the brick on trembling legs, glass crunching under her bare feet. Blood wells up from a dozen tiny cuts, but she barely feels it. With shaking hands, she unwraps the paper. The message is typed in block letters. We know your secret. He's not safe. Neither are you. Asterisk, asterisk. The paper falls from her nerveless fingers. Johnny appears in his doorway, eyes huge in his pale face. Mom, what happened? She stares at the shattered window, at the brick, at the note lying on her floor beside broken glass and spilled tea. Outside, the black sedan that's been parked on her street for 2 days pulls away slowly, its taillights disappearing into the night like red eyes winking out. With trembling hands, Amelia pulls Eli's business card from her pocket. 15 minutes later, Bennett's phone rings. Eli's voice is tight. Boss, we have a problem. Someone just threw a brick through Amelia's window. Threat note attached. I'm en route with a team. Bennett is already grabbing his jacket, his car keys. Is she hurt? Shaken, but no. The boy's fine too. Get them out of there. Take them to the safe house on Riverside. Full security detail. He's moving through his penthouse, checking his weapon. His mind already 3 steps ahead. And Eli. Yeah, boss. Bennett's voice drops to something cold and absolute, a promise etched in stone. Find out who did this. I don't care if it's Moretti or the Russians or God himself. Find them. And then, if anyone touches that boy, Bennett says quietly, each word measured and final, I'll burn this city to ash. 24 hours after the brick came through her window, Amelia stands in the grand ballroom of the Sinclair Hotel, arranging white roses with hands that won't stop shaking. She doesn't want to be here. She begged her boss to send someone else, but the contract is ironclad. The Butler Foundation Charity Summit requires her presence for final adjustments, or she forfeits her entire fee. A fee she desperately needs if she's going to take Johnny and disappear somewhere safe. "Mom, can I have more tape?" She turns to find Johnny kneeling beside a box of decorative ribbon. His green velvet jacket replaced by a simple navy sweater. She'd wanted to leave him with her neighbor Mrs. Chen, but after last night, she can't bear to let him out of her sight. Even now, in this glittering ballroom filled with dangerous people, having him close feels safer than the alternative. "Here, baby." She hands him the tape dispenser, then glances around the room. It's different tonight. Not the elegant charity gala from before, but something more businesslike. Circular tables arranged for negotiation rather than celebration. Men in expensive suits moving like sharks through shallow water, all teeth and cold eyes. She recognizes some faces from the news. Political figures, real estate moguls, names whispered in fear on certain streets. And at the center of it all, Bennett Butler. He stands near the main stage with 3 other men she doesn't recognize. His posture relaxed but his eyes constantly moving, cataloging threats. He hasn't looked at her since she arrived, but she knows he's aware of her presence. She can feel it like electricity across her skin. Eli Grant materializes beside her with the silence of a ghost. "You should have stayed at the safe house. I have a contract." She doesn't look at him, focusing instead on adjusting a centerpiece that doesn't need adjusting. "And I'm not running from my life because your boss has paranoid enemies. After last night, you still think this is paranoia?" A brick. A note. The way Eli and 4 armed men had arrived at her apartment within 20 minutes, whisking her and Johnny to a sterile safe house where they'd spent one sleepless night staring at unfamiliar walls. She'd left at dawn, ignoring Eli's protests, returning to her apartment to feed her cat and pretend she still had control over her own existence. "I think," she says carefully, "that I can't put my life on hold indefinitely because Bennett Butler's past is catching up with him. It's catching up with you too." Eli's voice is gentle but firm. "Whether you like it or not." Before she can respond, the main doors open and a new group enters. 6 men in dark suits, moving with the synchronized precision of soldiers. The room's temperature drops 10 degrees. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Even the catering staff freeze. Amelia watches Bennett's expression shift, a barely perceptible tightening around his eyes. His hand moving fractionally closer to his jacket. Across the room, his men drift into defensive positions so subtly she almost misses it. "Who are they?" she whispers. Eli's jaw clenches. "Moretti family. They weren't supposed to be here." The lead man, silver-haired, wearing a smile that doesn't reach his eyes, walks straight toward Bennett. "Anton Moretti." She recognizes him from the news, from whispered warnings, from the nightmares that have plagued her since the brick came through her window. "Mom." Johnny tugs her sleeve. Something feels wrong. Children have instincts adults learn to ignore. Amelia pulls Johnny closer, her heart starting to hammer. "Stay right beside me, okay? Don't leave my side." The 2 groups converge near the stage. Bennett's men and Moretti's, circling each other like wolves establishing territory. She can't hear their conversation, but she can read the body language. This isn't negotiation. This is a powder keg looking for a spark. "We need to leave," Eli mutters. "Now." He's reaching for her arm when the first shot rings out. The sound is impossibly loud in the enclosed space, followed by a woman's scream and the sharp crack of shattering glass. Amelia's brain takes 3 full seconds to process what's happening. Men pulling weapons, tables overturning, someone shouting in Italian, before instinct takes over. She grabs Johnny and drops, pulling him down behind a thick marble column as chaos erupts around them. More gunfire. The crystal chandelier above them explodes, raining glass like deadly snow. People are running, screaming, trampling each other in their panic to reach the exits. Stay down. Amelia covers Johnny's body with her own, her mind blank with terror. This can't be happening. This isn't real. She's a decorator, a single mother. She hangs drapes and arranges flowers and pays her rent late. She doesn't belong in a place where people shoot at each other in ballrooms. A body falls beside their column, one of Moretti's men, blood spreading across his white shirt like a blooming rose. Johnny whimpers, and Amelia presses his face against her chest, trying to shield him from the horror. Then Bennett is there. He appears as if materialized from shadow, his weapon drawn, his suit jacket torn at the shoulder. His eyes find hers across 3 feet of marble floor, and something passes between them. Recognition, terror, determination. Stay down, he commands, his voice cutting through the chaos with absolute authority. A gunman emerges from the smoke, weapon rising toward them. Bennett moves with fluid precision, a single shot center mass, and the man drops. No hesitation. No mercy. This isn't the literature student who used to read her poetry. This is someone else entirely. Someone forged in violence and blood. He crouches beside them, his body a shield between them and the continued gunfire. Can you run? What? Can you run? He grabs her arm, pulling her to her feet while keeping Johnny pressed between them. Exits 30 feet. When I say go, you run and don't look back. Bennett, do you understand? His eyes bore into hers, gray as gunmetal, absolutely focused. I need you to trust me. Right now. Can you do that? She nods, unable to form words. Johnny clings to her, trembling. Bennett glances around the column, calculating. 2 more shots echo from across the room, Eli's position providing cover. The main exit is visible through the haze of smoke and overturned tables, bodies scattered like broken dolls. Go! Bennett shoves them forward. Amelia runs. Her heels skid on marble slick with spilled champagne and blood. Johnny's hand is locked in hers, his breath coming in panicked gasps. Behind them she hears Bennett's weapon firing, measured, methodical, each shot finding its mark. They're 10 feet from the exit when a figure steps into their path. She recognizes him, one of Moretti's men from earlier, his gun rising toward Johnny's small body. Time slows to syrup. She tries to pivot, to put herself between the weapon and her son, knowing she'll never be fast enough. The shot comes from behind her. The man drops, a red flower blooming on his forehead. Bennett grabs them both, propelling them through the exit into the hotel corridor. Eli is already there, blood on his sleeve, phone pressed to his ear as he barks orders. 2 more of Bennett's men materialize, forming a protective barrier. Cars out front, Eli reports. Routes clear. Move. Bennett's hand is on Amelia's back, guiding her forward even as she stumbles. They burst through the hotel's main entrance into cold night air that tastes like freedom. A black SUV idles at the curb, engine running, back door open. Bennett practically throws them inside, climbing in after as Eli takes the front passenger seat. The driver accelerates before the door is even closed, tires screaming against asphalt. Through the back window, Amelia watches the hotel recede. Smoke billows from shattered windows. Police sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. The glittering facade they'd spent all day decorating is now a war zone. Johnny is crying silently against her chest. Her hands shake so badly she can barely hold him. Beside her, Bennett is on his phone, speaking in clipped tones about perimeter security and immediate lockdown. His voice the only calm thing in her spinning world. When he ends the call, the car is already leaving the city behind, heading north toward darkness and whatever comes next. Where are we going? Amelia's voice sounds foreign to her own ears. Bennett finally looks at her, and the mask cracks just slightly. Beneath the cold control she sees fear, real human fear. My estate, 40 minutes outside the city. It's the only place I can guarantee you're safe. I didn't agree to this. I know. He holsters his weapon, and she notices his hands are steady when hers are still shaking. But I'm not giving you a choice. Not anymore. She wants to argue, wants to scream at him for dragging them into his war, but she's too exhausted and terrified to fight. Instead, she holds Johnny tighter and watches the city skyline fade behind them, orange flames licking at the night sky where the hotel burns. In the front seat, Eli murmurs into his phone. In the back, Bennett stares out his window, his jaw tight, his fingers drumming an agitated rhythm against his thigh. "I'm sorry," he says quietly, so quietly she almost misses it. "I'm so sorry, Amelia." But sorry doesn't change what just happened. Sorry doesn't erase the images burned into her mind. Bodies on marble, blood on white roses, her son's terrified eyes. Sorry doesn't make them safe. The car races through the night, leaving the burning city behind, heading toward a future none of them chose but all of them must now survive. The safe house turns out to be a mansion. Not the kind Amelia decorates for clients, those gaudy displays of new money with more marble than taste. Bennett's estate sits behind iron gates and stone walls, sprawling across manicured grounds like something out of an old film. It's elegant in a way that speaks of generations of wealth, even if that wealth was built on blood. "This is temporary," Eli assures her as he carries their hastily packed bags inside. "Just until we neutralize the threat." Amelia clutches Johnny's hand tighter, taking in the armed guards stationed at every entrance, the security cameras tracking their movement, the way this beautiful prison closes around them like a velvet fist. "Mom, this place is huge," Johnny whispers, his fear momentarily forgotten in childlike wonder. She wants to tell him not to get comfortable, that they're leaving as soon as possible. But the memory of shattered glass and that threatening note stops the words in her throat. Bennett appears in the marble foyer, and something in Amelia's chest constricts. He's shed his suit jacket, his shirt sleeves rolled up, and he looks almost human, until you notice the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes constantly scan for threats even in his own home. "The guest wing is ready," he says, his voice carefully neutral. 2 bedrooms with a connecting bathroom. "Johnny, there's a game room on the 3rd floor if you want to explore. Completely safe," he adds, seeing Amelia's protective instinct flare. "Guards on every floor." "I don't want him out of my sight," Amelia says. "Mom, I'm not a baby." Johnny pulls free from her grip, looking between his parents with the uncomfortable awareness that he's the reason they're both miserable. "Your mother's right to be cautious," Bennett says quietly, and Johnny's eyes widen slightly at being addressed directly. "But you're safe here. I promise you that." "How can you promise anything?" The words escape Amelia before she can stop them. "You promised me things once before, remember?" The air in the foyer goes electric. Eli clears his throat. "I'll show Johnny to his room." "I can find it myself," Johnny mutters, grabbing his backpack and heading up the curved staircase with the confidence of a child whose decided adults are impossible to understand. When they're alone, the mansion feels too big and too small at the same time. "I know you're angry," Bennett starts. "Angry?" Amelia laughs, brittle and sharp. "I'm terrified. Someone threatened my son because of you. Because of what you are. And now we're locked in your fortress while men with guns patrol outside. And you want to talk about anger? I want to talk about the truth." He moves closer, and she forces herself not to step back. "You said I chose power over you. That I abandoned you for an empire. You're wrong. Then enlighten me." She crosses her arms, armor made of fury and fear. "Tell me what was so important that you couldn't even say goodbye." Bennett runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurts. For a moment, he looks lost, this powerful, dangerous man suddenly just a person carrying too much weight. "My father was murdered because of me," he says finally. "Because I refused to join the inner circle. Because I told him I wanted out, that I was going to marry you and live a normal life." His voice cracks on the word normal like it's a foreign language. 3 days later, someone put a bullet in his head and left him in the warehouse district. Amelia's breath catches. "They came to me that night. My uncle, the other bosses, men I'd known my whole life. They gave me a choice. Take over the family business or watch everyone I loved die the same way. My mother, my sister, you. He finally meets her eyes. Especially you. So you just left. Without explaining, without. If I'd stayed, if I'd even contacted you, you would have become leverage. They would have used you to control me, to ensure my loyalty. Or worse, they would have killed you just to prove they could. His hands curl into fists. I thought if I disappeared completely, if I became someone else, someone cold and ruthless and untouchable, you could live your life. You could be safe. I wasn't safe, she whispers. I was alone. And pregnant. And so scared I could barely breathe. I know. God, Amelia, I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. The profanity sounds wrong in this elegant space, but it's the most honest thing he's said. I made a choice to protect you, but all I did was hurt you. There's no redemption for that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you to understand that every day for 10 years, I've lived with the knowledge that the only way to keep you alive was to stay dead to you. The confession hangs between them, raw and terrible. Amelia feels tears burning behind her eyes but refuses to let them fall. This empire you see, Bennett continues, gesturing vaguely at the mansion around them. It's not power. It's a cage. Every decision I make, every alliance I forge, every enemy I destroy, it's all to build walls high enough that the people inside them can't be touched. But the walls keep getting higher, and I keep getting further from anything that feels real. Until Johnny walked up to you at that gala, Amelia says softly. Until Johnny walked up to me. Something breaks in his expression. He has your smile. Did you know that? When he looked at me, I saw you in his face, and I realized what I'd lost. Not just you. Not just the life we could have had. But him. 9 years of his life I'll never get back. They stand in the foyer, the weight of a decade pressing down on them. Amelia wants to hate him, wants to hold on to her anger like a shield. But beneath the rage, she can feel the old foundation of what they were. Two people who loved each other before the world got in the way. I don't know if I can forgive you, she says honestly. I don't expect you to. But I need you to keep Johnny safe. Whatever that takes. I will. Even if it costs me everything. 3 days pass in strange domesticity. Amelia explores the mansion like a prisoner mapping her cell, finding unexpected beauty in its library, its conservatory, its garden that somehow feels peaceful despite the guards stationed at every corner. Johnny, meanwhile, loses his fear in the way only children can. His curiosity overtaking caution. On the 4th evening, Amelia finds them in Bennett's study. Johnny sits across a chessboard from his father, his face scrunched in concentration. Bennett is teaching him strategy. His voice patient in a way she never imagined. See how the knight moves. It's the only piece that can jump over others. Sometimes the indirect approach is the strongest. Like a secret attack, Johnny says, moving his piece. Exactly. Bennett smiles, a real smile, soft and genuine, and Amelia's heart stutters. You're good at this. Mom says I'm good at thinking around problems. Your mother is a wise woman. Johnny glances up and spots Amelia in the doorway. Mom, Dad's teaching me chess. He says I'm a natural. The word Dad hangs in the air. Johnny says it so easily, like he's been waiting 9 years for permission. Bennett's hand freezes over the chessboard, his eyes finding Amelia's across the room. He should be angry. Should correct Johnny. Remind him that Bennett hasn't earned that title yet. But instead she just nods slowly and says, Don't stay up too late. It's almost bedtime. Later, after Johnny is asleep, she finds Bennett on the terrace, staring out at the darkened grounds. She brings 2 glasses of wine and sits beside him without asking permission. He called you Dad, she says. I heard. You looked terrified. I am. Bennett takes the offered wine but doesn't drink it. What if I fail him? What if I can't protect him from this world, or worse, what if I become just another thing he needs protection from? Then you'll be like every other parent, Amelia says quietly. Terrified and trying anyway. For the first time since the gala, Bennett laughs. Really laughs. And the sound is so unexpected that Amelia finds herself smiling too. It's brief, fragile, but it's real. When did you get so wise? He asks. Somewhere between the second job and the third eviction notice. They sit in companionable silence, and for a moment, Amelia can almost pretend they're just two people who once loved each other, finding their way back. But beyond the walls, in the darkness, Moretti's men are watching, waiting. And the fragile peace inside the mansion is already counting down to its end. The coded message arrives at 3 a.m. Eli finds Bennett in his office, surrounded by surveillance footage and intelligence reports, looking like a man who hasn't slept in days. We intercepted communications from Moretti's network, he says, his voice tight. They know about Johnny. They know everything. Bennett doesn't ask how. In this world, information bleeds through even the strongest defenses. Show me. The decoded message is brief, brutal. Target confirmed. There. 9 years old. Vulnerabilities mapped. They've been watching the house, Eli continues. Tracking patterns. They know which room is his, what time he goes to bed, that Amelia checks on him twice every night. Pauses. They know she's afraid of the dark. Bennett's hand curls into a fist on the desk. Double the perimeter. I want men on every shift change, rotating patterns, no predictability. And get Marco's team to sweep for listening devices again. Already done. But Bennett. Eli's expression darkens. This isn't just reconnaissance. They're planning something. Soon. By morning, the mansion has transformed into a fortress preparing for siege. Amelia watches from the library window as trucks arrive carrying supplies, weapons, men with hard faces and harder eyes. The elegant estate feels like it's holding its breath, beauty masking the violence coiled beneath. Mom! Johnny appears beside her, his voice small. Are we going to be okay? She wants to lie, to promise him safety the way she's promised him everything will be fine for 9 years. But the armed men patrolling the grounds make hollow words impossible. Your father won't let anything happen to us, she says instead, and realizes with a jolt that she believes it. The household becomes a machine of controlled chaos. Bennett's men arrive in shifts, some wounded from skirmishes Amelia doesn't want to imagine, others preparing for battles yet to come. She finds herself helping without meaning to, bringing water and bandages, her designer clothes replaced by practical jeans and a shirt with someone else's blood on the sleeve. You don't have to do this, Bennett says, finding her in the makeshift medical station they've set up in the conservatory. They're bleeding because of my son, Amelia replies, wrapping gauze around a man's shoulder with steady hands. The least I can do is help. She watches him work that day, really watches. Not the criminal she's built up in her mind, but the leader his men follow without question. He's not cruel, he's careful. Not ruthless. Resolute. Every order given with purpose, every risk calculated, every man under his command treated with a respect that borders on reverence. He'd die for any of us, one of the wounded men tells her quietly. And we'd do the same for him. That's not fear. That's loyalty. That evening, Amelia finds Bennett alone in his study, staring at surveillance photos of Moretti's known locations. You should get some rest, she says. I can't. He doesn't look up. If I close my eyes, I see all the ways this could go wrong. All the ways I could fail him. Fail you. Amelia closes the door behind her, moves into the room that smells of leather and whiskey and fear disguised as control. You won't. You don't know that. I know you. The words surprise her, but they're true. I know that everything you've done, every terrible choice, every sacrifice, it was to protect the people you love. I was angry because I didn't understand. But I see it now. I see you. Bennett finally looks at her, and the exhaustion in his eyes nearly breaks her heart. I never stopped loving you, he says, the confession raw and inevitable. Not for a single day in 10 years. Every empire I built, every wall I raised, It was all to create a world where you could exist without me destroying you. But I was wrong. The only mistake I ever made was thinking you were safer without me. The air between them charges with a decade of longing and loss. Amelia moves closer, drawn by gravity and memory and the aching knowledge that some loves refuse to die. Bennett. He stands, closing the distance, his hand finding her face with a tenderness that contradicts everything he's become. Tell me to stop. Tell me you hate me. Tell me anything but. She kisses him. It's not gentle. It's years of pain and anger and desperate, clawing need poured into a single moment. His hands tangle in her hair, her fingers grip his shirt, and they're 23 again, before the blood, before the empire, before everything shattered. The kiss tastes like goodbye and hello and every unsaid apology between them. The door bursts open. Sir. Eli stops, seeing them frozen mid-embrace. We have a problem. Bennett steps back, his hand lingering on Amelia's for one more heartbeat before duty reclaims him. What is it? Marco didn't report in from his patrol. We found his car abandoned 2 miles from the estate. Eli's face is grim. They took him alive. Bennett's phone buzzes. A message from an unknown number. The night Bennett left for Moretti's compound, the sky hung low and black, pregnant with violence. Amelia stood in the doorway watching him gear up, Kevlar beneath his shirt, guns strapped to his thighs like old friends. His movements were mechanical, practiced. A soldier preparing for war. I'll end this tonight, he said without looking at her. Eli stays with you. Lock every door. Don't open for anyone but me. She wanted to beg him not to go. Wanted to pull him back and tell him they could run, disappear into some nameless town where Moretti's shadow couldn't reach. But she'd learned something in the years he'd been gone. Survival wasn't passive. It was a choice you made with clenched fists. Come back, she whispered. He turned then, his scarred face unreadable in the dim light. For a heartbeat, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he nodded once and walked into the dark. Moretti's compound crouched on the edge of the industrial district like a beast waiting to feed. Warehouses stacked with dirty money. Guard towers manned by men who'd killed for less than a paycheck. Bennett moved through the perimeter like smoke, silent and lethal. His team, hand-picked ghosts from his old life, followed in formation. They cut the lights, disabled the cameras. By the time Moretti's men realized they were under attack, half of them were already bleeding out on concrete floors. Bennett found Moretti in his office, surrounded by lieutenants with guns drawn. You should have stayed dead, Moretti sneered, cigar smoke curling between them. So should you. The room exploded into chaos. Gunfire, shattered glass, bodies hitting the ground. Bennett fought like something unleashed, every strike calculated, every bullet finding flesh. He took hits, knife to the ribs, fist to the jaw, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. When Moretti lunged with a blade, Bennett caught his wrist and twisted until bone snapped. The old man crumpled, gasping. This is for every person you destroyed, Bennett growled, pressing the gun to Moretti's temple. The shot echoed like thunder. Miles away, Amelia heard Johnny crying. She'd put him down an hour ago, but now he stood in his crib, little fists clutching the rails, tears streaming down his cheeks. Mama! The window shattered. Glass exploded inward as a figure in black rolled through, gun raised. Amelia didn't think. She grabbed the lamp from the dresser and swung with everything she had. It connected with the man's skull in a sickening crack. He dropped. But there were more. Footsteps pounding up the stairs. Eli's shout from the hallway, cut short by gunfire. Amelia scooped Johnny into her arms and ran, heart hammering against her ribs. She locked them in the bathroom, pressed her back against the door, and dialed Bennett with shaking hands. No answer. The door shuddered as someone slammed against it. Once. She looked down at Johnny, his wide, terrified eyes, and something hardened inside her. She'd spent too long being afraid. Too long letting men with guns dictate her life. When the door splintered open, she was ready. The knife, Bennett's knife, hidden beneath the sink, flashed in her hand as the assassin lunged. She drove it upward, felt resistance, then give. The man staggered back, shock painted across his face. She didn't wait. Didn't hesitate. She kicked him hard in the chest, and he tumbled backward down the stairs. Silence crashed over the house like a wave. Bennett found her sitting on the bathroom floor, Johnny asleep in her lap, blood on her hands. He was bleeding too, shoulder, side, face split open above his brow, but he dropped to his knees beside her, hands framing her face. "Amelia! I killed him," she whispered, voice hollow. "I had to. I know. I know." His thumb brushed her cheek, smearing crimson. "You saved him. You saved our son." She looked up at him then, and something passed between them. Recognition, forgiveness, love scraped raw and rebuilt from ash. "It's over," Bennett breathed, swaying slightly. "Moretti's dead. It's over." Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. Amelia screamed his name as sirens wailed in the distance, red and blue lights painting the walls like a heartbeat refusing to quit. The hospital wing smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. Bennett woke to white sheets and the dull throb of stitched skin. His chest was wrapped tight, ribs screaming with every shallow breath. But he was alive. Outside the reinforced glass, the Empire still stood. The board had been purged. Loyalists installed. The headlines spun the attack as terrorism, a narrative already calcified into truth by morning. Nothing had changed. And yet everything had. Dr. Okafor entered without knocking, her expression carefully neutral. "You'll heal," she said. "Against all odds, Mr. Ashford." Again. He didn't ask about Marcus. He already knew. What surprised him was how little he felt. Amelia came that evening, Johnny clutching her hand. The boy's eyes were still too wide, too aware. He'd seen things no child should see. Things Bennett had tried his entire life to hide, and failed. "I'm sorry," Bennett said, voice hoarse. Amelia sat. She looked tired, beautiful, unmoved. "Sorry doesn't undo it," she said quietly. "But it's a start." Johnny climbed onto the bed, careful of the tubes. His small hand found Bennett's. "Does it hurt?" "Yes. Mom says hurt means you're still alive." Bennett's throat tightened. "She's right." 2 days later, Bennett made the offer. They were in his private study, the one room in the estate where cameras didn't reach. He slid 2 passports across the desk. Swiss documents. New names. Account numbers written on folded paper. "You can disappear," he said. "Clean break. New city, new country. I'll make sure no one ever finds you." Amelia stared at the passports. Her face was unreadable. "You'd let us go. I'd set you free." She picked up the documents, thumbed through them. Johnny's new name was listed as Daniel Carver. 7 years old. Born in Geneva. Then she set them down. "No." Bennett blinked. "Amelia. I didn't run from you because I was afraid of your world, Bennett." Her voice was steady. "I ran because you chose it over us. Every single time." "I know. Do you?" She leaned forward. "You can build 1,000 walls. Hire 1,000 guards. But Johnny doesn't need a kingdom." Her eyes held his. "He needs his father." Bennett felt something crack open inside him. Something he'd buried beneath strategy and ruthlessness for so long he'd forgotten it existed. "I don't know how to be that," he whispered. "Then learn." Dawn came slowly. The 3 of them stood on the east balcony as pale gold light cut through the lingering smoke over the city. Johnny was between them, one hand in Bennett's, the other in Amelia's. "Is it over?" Johnny asked. Bennett looked out at the skyline. His empire, his cage, his monument to control. "Not yet," he said. "But it will be." Amelia glanced at him. Something softened in her expression. Not forgiveness, not yet. But possibility. Bennett squeezed Johnny's hand. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of a promise he actually intended to keep. Not to shareholders. Not to power. To the boy who called him father. To the woman who'd loved him before the armor. To the fragile, terrifying idea that maybe, just maybe, the truth hadn't destroyed him. Maybe it had saved him. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy you, it saves you. Even if it comes from the smallest voice in the room. Thank you for staying with me till the very end of this story. Every view, every comment, every moment you spend here keeps these stories alive. If you felt this one, make sure to subscribe, and let me know you watched to the end.